This is a photo of Natalie Siver, the English all-rounder, playing a fairly unique looking shot called the nutmeg. Well, it's not what she called it, but users on Twitter came up with that name when her innovation was put on ICC's Twitter handle when she played that shot back in 2017 in the World Cup in England. The shot, as she describes it, is a way to tackle Yorkers and make sure some runs are squeezed out of the delivery by playing the ball towards the square leg region from between her legs. She scored 129 in that match against New Zealand and was also a part of a record partnership. But this shot stood out. Why? Well, I'll tell you why. What's remarkable about this photo and this shot is that for me, in a way, it tells what women's cricket has achieved in the past decade. It is not really looking at men's cricket and only learning from it. It is finding its own rhythm, it is finding its own innovations, and in that process, it is creating a place for itself. The Women's T20 World Cup in 2020 showed how far the game has come in terms of its appeal and following, and the stars that it has produced over the last few years have begun to develop their own fan bases. Well, a lot might not have gone right for the world in 2020, but the way it began for women's cricket, one can only sense bigger things happening for the game in the next 10 years. And when all of that happens, remember this photo, remember this shot called the nutmeg played by Nat Siver. Few episodes ago, we hosted on this podcast former India wicketkeeper Deep Das Gupta, who became the first India cricketer to have been on the show. Today we have yet another India cricketer joining us, and that too a woman cricketer. What better than a woman cricketer to talk to in a year where women's cricket has really taken off? So thank you so much, Snehal. Thank you so much for joining us on this podcast. So excited to be talking to an India cricketer about her journey with the game.
Thank you very much, Amit. I think adding former India cricketer is probably important because a lot of my subscribers on YouTube are still under the impression that I'm a current player and they were asking me why I'm not in the World Cup and all that.
But you have been involved with the game for such a long time and now in a different capacity, and you're still there, right? Still around cricket.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm pretty lucky in that regard to be able to stick around in the field, contributing now off the field as it was on the field before.
You know, before the corona gloom took over, one thing that happened in this year was India's Superb World T20 campaign. So as a former cricketer, as a former India cricketer, now I'm putting that out, okay? So as a former India cricketer and a cricket expert, you of course followed it very closely. So couple of questions to you first up on that. What is it that India have done well over the last few years? I mean, you know, we had the team reaching the finals of the World Cup in 2017, now the World T20 final happening. So what is it that has changed so much in the last 5 years that the successes are, of course, increasing? And secondly, after that question, the answer that I'm looking forward to you from you is that performance in the final, was it a one-off thing, or, you know, do we as a team sometimes struggle on the D-Day?
So the first part of that question goes back beyond 5 years. I think what changed for a lot of women's cricket teams and why the standard is so high is the introduction of the ICC Women's Championship, which is essentially a future tours program where the top 8 teams have to play each other once, alternately home and away in each cycle. So that means that India got a lot of matches leading up to that 2017 World Cup, which wasn't the case leading up to the 2013 World Cup, you know, where we had a home World Cup and we had a great opportunity and we crashed out in the first round itself, didn't even make the Super 6. So stark contrast is because the team played a lot more competitive cricket, and that is a brilliant move by the ICC, and only now men's cricket is getting around to ODIs which have context and feed into qualification for a World Cup. And the second bit is in 2015, India women became, I think, the last country in the top 8 to get professional contracts. So the fact that then players were paid throughout the year, full-time employees essentially, they could focus a lot more on their game as opposed to having to worry about finding railway jobs and fulfilling the commitments over there. So those are the two real nodes that led to an improvement in performance in 2017. And since then, things have picked up so much more. The team has captured the imagination of the public. All these players, or most of them at least, now are recognizable on TV. There's a much better commitment from both the BCCI and the broadcasters with regards to showing women's cricket, taking it to smaller venues like Baroda and Surat, where you have packed houses coming to watch these women play. So since then, it's been on an upward swing. Second part of that question is, I mean, essentially you're asking, do India have a problem in big finals? Because they've been in the semi-finals of the last 3 ICC tournaments, finals of the last 2 ICC tournaments, have not won a trophy. But you probably have to understand that it's a generational change, and the teams that they're up against have a lot more time with this generational change. And you go up against, for example, Australia, who got professional contracts in 2009, England in 2009, Australia in 2010. So they've had a massive 5-year head start. And those 2 countries also have domestic T20 competitions, which feed their domestic cricket, professional competitions, the Women's Big Bash, and what was until recently the Women's Cricket Super League in England will now be the 100, hopefully, at some point, once this entire situation normalizes.
Those are the couple of reasons you say that, that changed Indian cricket, and apart from that, this is one reason because of which India is sort of struggling to get the trophies home despite performing so well in the tournaments.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a question of depth a little bit, because to win a tournament, I mean, you can win the odd match on the back of your match winners, and India have more match winners now than they had in the last 10 years. But to win a tournament, essentially, you need to build a team of match winners. And that's what other countries have been able to do somewhat successfully, very successfully with Australia, somewhat successfully with England. And that is the approach that India will need to follow from the grassroots up to win an ICC tournament, I think.
You also talked about the Women's Big Bash League. You also talked a bit about the 100. And, something that has come up in the last few years is the mention of, or the need of, a women's IPL. So, do you think it's important to the future of women's cricket in the country, a tournament like a women's IPL?
So I wrote in February last year, when India lost a T20 that they should have won against England, that it's not just a matter of the right thing to do. It's now become a matter of India need a women's IPL if they are serious about winning a T20 World Cup, because it is so critical that you have a tournament like that, which just improves the standard of your domestic cricket. They're rubbing shoulders with the best in international cricket. You have a very focused, concentrated pool of talent, rather than the fact that we have almost 35 teams in our domestic cricket. So I think it's absolutely crucial that India have a women's IPL. I think there is enough talent, enough depth in domestic cricket to start a 4-team IPL right now. The IPL T20 Women's Challenge, which is the current exhibition matches that are being held, had expanded to 4 teams. So if we have the IPL, or if we have the IPL this year, then that would have or may happen. But I would love to see that expanded next year to a 4-team IPL with 4 of the current franchisees coming on board, and then expanding to an 8-team tournament in, say, 5 years' time.
And a full-fledged tournament that goes on for years, right?
Absolutely. This is a legacy investment. This is something that is being done to alter the future of Indian women's cricket, or for that matter, Indian cricket, which is exactly what the IPL has done for men's cricket. It's made India the team to beat in all formats. And it's exactly what I think Indian women's cricket can become, because you have to understand Indian women's cricket has a huge advantage over the likes of England and Australia. And in fact, there's so many people are already playing. So many men, forget even women, so many men are already playing. And then those men have sisters, they have daughters, they have people who they are just like in terms of what is happening right now, infecting the people around them with this love of the game. So there is a huge pool of players who are interested in cricket, women who are interested in cricket, which just needs to be tapped. And given a pathway, given the opportunities, and India can dominate world cricket in men's and women's both in a matter of 5 to 7 years.
Wonderful. That's very hopeful. And again, as you said, as we discussed, that although the trophies are not coming, the successes are there, and probably if that guide map is followed, the trophies will follow as well. Okay, moving on. Let's bring our focus back to you. So, in your post-cricket career, you've broken new grounds. You've turned into this cricket pundit and have written for several publications. So, first, I would like to know a bit about that journey, that transition, and how easy or difficult it is in general for a women cricketer to chart a post-cricket career.
So the backdrop essentially was that it essentially starts with an older decision of how difficult it is for a women's cricketer to make a career in cricket in the first place. When I was in the third year of my BSc, I was doing a BSc in microbiology, having to decide whether I will go for higher studies. Essentially not earning anything in cricket because these were pre-BCCI days where the Women's Cricket Association of India were in charge. BCCI only took over from 2006 onwards.
Yes.
So at that phase, I was having to make that decision whether I could just essentially continue eating out of my parents' pockets or, make serious investments towards my education and the rest of my future, or keep playing cricket in a very amateur form. Luckily, at that time, an opening with Western Railway came up where I was able to basically get a government job. And that government job for a lot of people is all about, job security. You have it for your entire life, even after you stop playing cricket.
Absolutely.
So I took up that job. It allowed me to continue playing cricket, allowed me to be a semi-professional. I had to attend the office half the day and then got the rest of the day off for training and then leave for tournaments, etc. Moved from my home of Pune to Mumbai where I was working for this. And that essentially became my life for the next 10 years almost, playing in that semi-professional manner. That's the period where I developed the best as a cricketer, played for the country, continued to represent Maharashtra for 15 years. And then came the point where I had decided that I'm not going to play anymore. I've had my run and I quit that job. I quit that job because I was quite clear that I am not the kind of person who's going to work in a railway office for my entire life, with due respect to everyone who does that. But it just didn't appeal to me. It didn't, I feel, satisfy the potential that I had. And so I took a huge risk of quitting that permanent job, security, pension, income, all those things. And I had been writing a few blogs during my cricket career. Then I started writing a little more regularly and I started a blog dedicated to cricket. And one publication, Wisdom India, noted that blog and they gave me some opportunities to write for them while I was playing cricket. So then once I decided that I'm going to now stop playing cricket, I just thought, let's try this writing stuff. And I reached out to a few people in a few websites, essentially, to ask if you would be interested in having content from me. And having done a little bit of writing, I was still very raw, but I had a little bit of work experience and some content on my CV, so to speak. But the fact that I had played cricket for India, of course, gave me a leg up. It gave me an added edge as opposed to other contributors. And also the fact that very few people were writing about women's cricket at that time. That was a gap which I was best placed to fill. And that was a gap that I wanted to fill because I was frustrated with the lack of coverage that women's cricket gets. So those circumstances came together quite nicely. And I was able to discover that, I might be able to sustain myself, support myself with this writing work. And slowly writing has evolved. I've moved into commentary as well. Been lucky enough to be working with people like Star Sports on TV and BBC and ABC on radio. And then, I also built my own YouTube channel. But I suppose that's like a pretty different story.
That's a massive leap of faith you took. Not many would have the courage to leave a government job and to dive into this, but you've done that yeoman's job for women cricket. As you said, you needed to fill that gap where no one was covering women's cricket as well. and you had the skill set to do it. So it's a great thing that you did, and I guess women's cricket will recognize that your contribution to it.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the biggest contribution is the fact that now there are other people. Now that gap no longer exists.
Exactly.
Is that there are so many people now taking an interest in the women's team. There are so many people. I mean, there are websites dedicated to women's cricket, just covering women's cricket, which have been doing a great job. And I mean, there's still a long way to go, because in the 2017 World Cup, I was one of only 3 Indian journalists to travel to England, who actually thought that this is something worth betting on, and the other 2 were from Vision India, which was a company that was working closely with the ICC on that tournament.
Mm-hmm.
So in a sense, I was the only one who essentially bothered to travel to England to see how these girls go.
Wow.
And they went so well.
Exactly. And that's where, the story began to turn around for Indian cricket as well. Okay, then now we come to the special part of this special episode, where our guest Snehal is going to list down her favorite 5 photos from her career. So let's get down to it. Let's start with photo number 5 on that list. Tell us, which one is it?
I think I'm probably going to go fairly chronologically.
All right.
So, I mean, some of your other guests might have spoken about photos they've seen in newspapers and stuff, They've seen images of cricket matches which have stuck with them. But I wasn't much of a newspaper photo collector, or, those images really don't stick in my mind when I cast my mind back.
Mm-hmm.
So one image that, so basically I picked out images from my own experience, from my own career. And the first one that I have to start with is this photo of myself and Julian Goswami, who is essentially the woman I have looked up to, the woman I wanted to idolize. I saw a dream of opening the bowling with her for India, and that photo is essentially just the cusp of that realization of that dream. It's 2008, which is my debut series for India. And we are on the terrace of the hotel we were staying in Colombo, where we were for the Asia Cup. And this lovely backdrop, grey skies, a murky ocean behind us, a few shrubs which are on just the ledge of that hotel. And just the 2 of us, me in a white India shirt, she in a red practice India shirt. She's got her arm around my shoulder. And that is just like a wonderful memory for me, because she was a captain as well on that tour. I think it was her first tour as captain.
And that's a photo of a dream realized.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
was she captain? No, I don't think she was captain. I don't think she was captain yet.
All right. How is it sharing the dressing room with someone you have looked up all your life, you have idolized? Was it a little intimidating? I mean, we all know she's as sweet as the Rasgulla, but she's such a big cricketer with such a massive experience, and of course, the best fast bowler, among the best fast bowlers of the world. So how was it sharing the dressing room with her?
I was intimidated when I met her essentially for the first time, which was her debut series. In 2002, and there was one of those games was in Pune, and I got to meet her at the team hotel after that, and I was 16, she was 19. So I mean, I was very much a kid, but once I had played for India, once I got into the Indian team, I had been rubbing shoulders with her on the domestic circuit a little bit. And she's that personality. She's a very outgoing personality. She's a very warm personality. She's that kind of a person who goes out of the way to make you feel comfortable. Because that's the kind of person she is. I think she's that big joint family kind of person. And B, also she knows that's important for the team. So she makes you feel very comfortable, and she gives it to you straight if, she thinks that there is some bullshit going on. And she's very expressive on the field as well. But she's that kind of personality who, she's not going to, she will definitely go out of her way to make you feel comfortable. So I didn't feel intimidated by her eventually. But I'm just amazed by her, the fact that, she started her career in 2002. We're now in 2020 and she's still going. I've played, I've retired. So it's just like an incredible achievement that she's still going. She's still serving the game.
Absolutely. So what's next on that list? Which photo comes on number 4?
Number 4 is a memory from the 2011 World Cup. That is the final, where I was in Mumbai working for Western Railway, came down to Pune for the weekend, so got home. So this is a photo from my Pune house, and my school friends are over. We're all watching the final together. My family members are there too, and I thought it would be a great idea to get all my India shirts out, and all of us basically wear those shirts, to support the team, because at that time it was all about bleed blue. Hashtags weren't in fashion then, but
Yeah, it was
these
still
slogans
bleed blue.
definitely were. Yeah. So the photo is basically with our backs to the camera. You can see me and 3 of my other friends, 2 of my family members. We're all looking towards the TV. 4 of us, 4 out of 6 people in the photo have got India shirts on. So you can see 3 number 18s there. You can see my name on the back of that photo.
Yes.
And we're all, just sharing that experience of watching the final, which went so very well, and just ended in such a great celebration.
And who clicked this photo? I mean, that is the special part, because such memories often go unclicked. And I'm so glad that it's right there for you. It's been clicked, and it's a part of your, possibly, the album.
Yeah, I'm not sure who clicked it. I don't remember. It's possibly my dad, because he is the one who's not in that photo. I think it should be him, yeah.
And before Virat Kohli wearing jersey number 18, it was Snehal Pradhan wearing jersey number 18.
So I'm
You're the
born on the 18th.
original 18.
I'm sure there were some 18s before that, but I'm born on the 18th. So it wasn't my first number. I think the first number was 27 because someone else had 18. But I do remember the fact that after me, it was Smriti Mandana, who's now wearing 18 in the Indian women's team, because she's also born on the 18th.
And you're also born on 18th of March, so that explains it.
Yeah, she's born on the 18th of July, I think this is. If I get it wrong, she's probably going to kill me.
All right, this is one lovely photo, and especially with the story and, with the unknown photographer who captured such a special, beautiful moment. So 2 photos done. What is third?
It is my entire team in our Maharashtra kits, which are these awfully bright yellow kits with green bands on the shoulders. And we're all celebrating a victory pose in, this is probably 2015? No, it's probably 2013. And we're all celebrating in Pune, our home ground, because we've just beaten the Railways in an incredible match, which went down to a super over. So the Railways, of course, now, like I said, they employ most women's cricketers because that's why they have the best talent. So you have the Mithali Raj, the Poonam Raut, Harmanpreet Kaur, Ekta Bisht, all these stalwarts in that team. And Smriti Mandhana was leading our team, Maharashtra. And we ran them down to the wire, pushed the match into a super over. And then they made the mistake of bowling a medium pacer in that super over. Smriti went out and smashed almost 20 runs, almost single-handedly in the super over. I had to bowl the super over to close the game out. It was Mithali, Poonam, and Harmanpreet I was up against.
My God, that's a studded lineup.
Yeah, and I remember going for this wide Yorker policy. So I had my third man back, deep cover back, mid off back, mid on back, deep mid wicket back, and fine leg in the ring. So I could not afford to give Harmanpreet anything on the pads. So just firing in wide Yorkers, and I got one of them out. I can't remember which one exactly it was. And that was such a brilliant occasion. It was the first time we had ever beaten the Indian Railways. the way that match played out, we thought we were completely out of the game when our lower order rescued us, got us up to the super over. Then Smriti came out and bossed it, and we chose me to bowl the over because we know how strong Harman is against spin. So yeah, that is one of my favorite memories from my cricket playing career. And there aren't a lot of photos, of course, of the career because, unlike male cricketers who are photographed on and on and on throughout their careers, we aren't. So there's not a lot of those photos which I can draw memories from. There's a lot of memories which I can wish I could make photos from.
This is one special one because the excitement of a super over is something else, and to have beaten Railways with that sort of a batting lineup and to have bowled that final over, I'm pretty sure it must have been full of adrenaline rush, and the taste of victory must be very sweet.
Oh yeah, I was so nervous. I bowled a couple of wides to start with. I mean, if we didn't have almost 20 runs to play with, I would have lost the match for us.
Thank God that's not how it went. Yeah, that was photo number 3. What is photo number 4?
Photo number 4, again going chronologically, is the photo taken of me in the press box of Lords the day before the World Cup final of 2017. So I mean, this is symbolizing my transition now from active player to someone in the media. This was the first international tournament I had traveled for. I decided chalo, let's try this freelance stuff. And again, it was a risk because I didn't have assignments in hand until probably I didn't have enough assignments in hand to make the trip financially viable until probably 1 week before the tournament. And I had booked my tickets probably a couple of months, made the investments a couple of months before the tournament. So it was a special tournament for me because I was so lucky to be one of the few who was watching that wonderful World Cup unfold. In the photo, it's basically taken from behind, where you can see I'm sitting sideways, taking notes in my diary. My laptop is open in front of me. There are a couple of journalists. You can see the back of their heads in the row in front of me, and then you can see the ground. You can see you can see Lords in that photo. And it's also important because those two journalists who are there, who you can see, the back of their heads, you can see rather, are important contributors in the story of Indian women's cricket. Also, it's Karunya Keshav and Siddhant Patnaik, who were both there from Wisden, India. And they both then authored a book on the history of women's cricket in India. Siddhant is no more. He passed away last year. And so to get to share that experience with the two of them, who became good friends of mine, it was the start of this feeling that I'm part of a new team, that I'm part of now a team which is responsible for telling the stories and asking the hard questions off the field, all, of course, with the intention that Indian women's cricket grows as much as possible and they are the best that they can be, and we one day win a World Cup.
So for a fast bowler, you seem to have taken a lot of leaps of faith. So was it the same when you were a cricketer, and as a bowler also, did you trust your gut instinct a lot more than other things? Because, taking this assignment just a week before the tournament and leaving that railway job. So it's a lot of gut instinct.
Answer is probably I'm more of that kind of person now.
Okay. So that is
right.
post-cricket.
So post-cricket, yeah. I'm a much more assured person post-cricket. I mean, as a cricketer, self-doubt is almost inherent to any sport. And there are some people who have none of that and are super confident and all those. I wasn't that type of person. I always had my doubts. I always had my days where I didn't back myself as much as I could have, should have. But I think there's a lot more confidence now in the second half of my career. I know myself a lot better. Still learning new things every day, but I am really proud of the person I am after my cricket, more so than during my cricket.
Last but not the least, tell us about the most precious picture of yours from the game.
So this is a photo I took of the MCG where it's just outside the MCG on the day of the T20 World Cup final, Women's Day 2020. It's a Sunday. We are expecting a crowd for a women's cricket match, but I am looking essentially from one of the windows of the staircase of the MCG. So I was on my way up, looked out the window. I can see a line which is about 50 to 60 people deep, and there are about 15 such lines. So it's a huge throng of people in Yara Park lining up for tickets for the World Cup final. The fact that there are so many people there for a women's cricket game was just like
Overwhelming,
and
wasn't
of course at the time we were building up towards a world record, so I was like, we're going to do this, there's so many people here, we're going to do this. Eventually they fell short of the world record by some 5,000 people, but to have 86,174 people, I'm not going to forget that number easily. Those many people in the MCG for a World Cup final was just so special, and to feel it build up. The final was starting at 6 p.m. I got to the ground to Yara Park at 1 p.m. So I could literally see the crowd build up. It did not feel like a women's cricket match, and I suppose that's the highest compliment I can pay to the tournament and the final, is that it felt like just another major sporting event. It could have been the Australian Open final. It could have been a Formula One game where there's so many people, Formula One race. It could have been the final of the Men's World Cup. And that's what Australia did for the Women's World Cup. That's what India did by getting to the final and pulling so many people in. That's what I think that tournament's destiny really was, to show us what a women's sport is.
Yeah, what all it is capable of, and how many people it can pull towards it. But seriously, it's such a goosebump inducing picture, just to think of it. There is no cricket happening here, but the context of it is so beautiful. And I'm so glad that you were there to experience it firsthand.
Yeah, and to think how lucky we got in the fact that literally 1 week later, cricket was shutting down everywhere across the world.
Yeah, so, this was the last bright flame.
Absolutely. And I talk about like how a destiny seemed to play a part in just getting that result, because you think back to the semi-final where Australia seemed on the verge of a washout. The SCG, it was more like Mumbai, the way it was raining, and there was just a little 2.5 hour window of no rain between 13 hours of continuous rain, and that 2.5 hour window was just at the right time for Australia to play the semi-final and beat South Africa and get to the final. Otherwise, it was 2.5 years of marketing just completely down the drain.
Absolutely. And an Australia versus India final was of course going to get more people in the stadium than a South Africa versus India. So the match happened in those 2.5 hours, and the result came in favor of Australia. So that also worked in its way. So now that we're done with the photo business, one thing that I would like to know from you, especially since you've been a cricketer as well as a part of media fraternity now, and you also touched a bit upon this subject of how women's cricket is now. It used to be less followed, less captured than how it is now. So, as a cricketer, as a media person, how much has changed? How much is changing?
You mean specifically women's cricket or overall?
Absolutely. Women's cricket. In terms of media coverage, when I look up on the internet, as someone who loves cricket photographs, there are barely any photographs from women's cricket. But
yeah, that's true.
Exactly. And, that's for anyone who is interested in the history of the game, not enough photographs, not enough, statistics. So how is it changing now? Is it on the way of seeing a transformational change, or, is it still a very slow change?
I think that change took a bit of a leapfrog jump in 2017 when the performance in that final really pulled the attention of the nation towards the Indian women's team. And since then, there is so much more coverage. Like I said, that gap has now been filled, covering what women's cricketers do, the basic minutiae of what they do in every match reports, all those things are covered. The level of broadcasting has gone up. I mean, yeah, it's just comparing in 2017. It's hard to believe now, but not every match of that World Cup was on TV. And that was the first World Cup where every match was available on some platform, because the matches that weren't on TV were live streamed. So now you have a tournament like this recent T20 where every match was on TV, and it did really well on TV. The ICC's released some figures which have shown a viewership increase of some 10 times from the last World Cup.
Things are looking
so
up.
much has changed, absolutely, yeah. I mean, I remember playing in front of empty crowds, or crowds who were just there because, women are playing and they're there for the wrong reasons, partly curiosity, partly almost voyeurism. So it's a phenomenal change. Now the game has hardcore fans who are fans of women's cricket for the cricket, not for the women.
That's beautiful.
So-
That's a much welcome change.
So yeah, there is so much change happening for sure, and there is always scope for more.
Sure, let's hope that more happens soon and we have cricket action back, especially a lot of women's cricket action. Once this corona scare goes away, that is. Excellent. This was, one hell of an interesting ride down the memory lane with you, Snehal, and it's a beautiful little story you told us in photographs. And as I said, what is special about these photographs is that they may appear merely two-dimensional objects, but you put them in the hands of the person who is in those photographs, and so many stories appear out of nowhere. So a big thank you for giving us a peep into your story as a cricketer, as a journalist, with those wonderful photographs. And thanks a lot for being a part of this show. I hope you had a good time.
I enjoyed the chat. It's a nice concept, nice format, and I'm sure you're going to have a lot more stories. I'm looking forward to listening to the entire season.
Thank you so much. I loved having you over on this podcast. Thank you so much again. All right, that brings us to the end of this episode of Random Cricket Photos That Make My Guests Happy podcast. God willing, we'll be back again soon with more cricket-loving guests, more beautiful photographs, and more happiness. Till then, love cricket, stay happy.